Avi Meyer's Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org. Over 250,000 shows watched on YouTube. Sonny HTV, you can subscribe and get all the weekly notices for all the new shows that are coming up as we put them up on the web. Community Policing, Sonny in his spare time is the chairman of the District Advisory Committee of the 24th District. Go to caps24.org to find your local community policing meetings in Rogers Park, in West Rogers Park, in the north part of Edgewater. Community policing is alive and well. And, I want to wish a get well to Sergeant Bob Kane, who underwent hip replacement surgery, and we hope you're feeling really good and healthier right now. It is a pleasure to introduce you to somebody I met at the Republican Jewish Coalition. I'm not technically a Democrat or Republican, but I love, sometimes you got to search out Republicans in this town and in this county. And I was there to see Ari Fleischer, and there was a real big turnout. It was very interesting to see a Republican press secretary after hearing the lies of Democratic press secretaries and hearing the lies of a Republican press secretary. But that's their job. Anyway, he is a commissioner of the Board of Review and somebody who's taught very highly. Dan Patlak, how are you?
Avi, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
First of all, my pleasure. And why don't you explain to us what the Board of Review is?
Well, the Board of Review is a quasi-judicial elective office run by 3 elected commissioners representing 3 different geographic districts. And we review property assessment appeals for all property in Cook County. That would be residential, commercial, industrial, and vacant property.
And well, that's a lot of parcels.
1.8 million in Cook County, yes.
Wow. And of those 1.8 parcels, I didn't ask you to do any research. I'm just curious how many are off the books, how many are on the books, nonprofit, government.
Oh, gee, I sure don't know how many are exempt from taxation, but that would be those that are municipal, charitable, and religious. But they have to go through a process for that, and actually they have to go through our office. We review their request. We make a recommendation to the Illinois Department of Revenue, and then the Illinois Department of Revenue makes the final decision on which properties will be exempt.
Interesting. Now, if there's 3 of you and 1.8 million parcels, I hope you got a little bit of a staff.
We have approximately 124 people. Those are made up of analysts. Each commissioner has their own staff of analysts. Then we also have a clerical staff, which makes sure that the files are circulated properly and the correct paperwork gets into them, and that we get all the information back into the computer system when we make our decisions.
Now, it's a lot of information. Let me ask you, in terms of, we have these politicians coming on all the time urging people like Larry Supperton and all the rest, appeal your tax, review it. Do you guys handle that also?
Well, that's exactly the appeals we handle. Now, of course, the first place people can go to appeal their assessments is to the Cook County Assessor's Office. But whether or not they go to the assessor and whether or not they receive a reduction from the assessor, they can come to the Board of Review. We are an office that is separate from the assessor. A lot of people think we're part of the assessor's office, but we're not. We're independent, and we're independent for a reason, so that we can make independent decisions. We're not beholden to what the assessor thinks or does. So you can appeal to the Board of Review, and last year was the Chicago Triennial. In other words, that was the year that Chicago was reassessed. And because of that, we received a higher number of appeals than we normally do. We had 420,000 parcels of property that were appealed at the Board of Review.
So that's almost a quarter of the parcels in Chicago.
That's correct.
That's a lot of reviews.
It's a lot of reviews. Now we probably, out of that 420,000 parcels, there were probably 160,000 cases. In other words, some property has more than one parcel. So they would, more than one parcel would be appealed as part of one, what we call docket.
Yeah.
So, but in any case, even 160,000 is a lot of appeals.
Yeah. That's a big number. Any idea how many people actually got their appeals approved, or?
Well, the number varies from year to year. I worked at the Board of Review as an analyst from 1999 to 2006. And the first year I worked there, I believe the success rate was about 54%. That number varies from year to year. Last year, the success rate was 64%. Now, of course, that includes all reductions. So some of the reductions were small and some were large, but 64%, not a bad percentage rate for those that appeal.
No, not at all, as a matter of fact. I did appeal once, and Part of my problem is that there's 5 different houses on this block that are exactly the same. And at times, mine's been higher. Right now, mine's the lowest of the 5. So I didn't appeal last time, although a lot of people were telling me I should have appealed anyway.
Well, you can appeal based on a variety of reasons. Now, the one you were describing would be lack of uniformity. So if there were properties like yours on the block that were assessed lower, you'd have a good reason for appeal. Now, based on lack of uniformity, it sounds like you don't have a good reason for appeal, but there are other reasons. You could appeal based on market value. So in other words, if the assessor says that your house is worth $250,000, but you know, in fact, from seeing local sales that the house is only worth $200,000, you could do a market value appeal, and you could turn into us an appraisal, or you can turn into us sales data on homes like yours in your neighborhood that have sold for less recently, that justifies a lower market value for your home, and we could then reduce the market value and thus reduce the assessment.
That's actually the best I've ever heard that explained, and the first time I actually understood that.
Well, one of the things I ran on, when I first was elected in 2010, one of the things I ran on was education, that it's important to educate the public about the taxation process and about the appeal process, because I believe that the more information the public has, the better decisions they can make when they go to the polling place, and the more equipped they are if they happen to believe that they might be overassessed. If they know how the process works, they can figure out if in fact they are overassessed, and they know they can take the action of appealing at the assessor's office, the Board of Review. And by the way, there's a third place you can appeal, and that is a state agency called the Property Tax Appeal Board.
Never heard of that either.
Well, most people haven't, but
Yeah.
it is the venue of last resort. If you get turned down by the assessor, you get turned down by my office, the Board of Review, you can file an appeal with that state agency, the Property Tax Appeal Board, PTAB for short.
Wow. This is very educational. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Well, we do these seminars.
Yeah.
Usually I do a seminar. I go out to a particular township that's open for appeal, and I will give a presentation that's probably about an hour and 15 minutes. And we cover the property tax process. We talk about exemptions, and then we talk about how you file an appeal at the Board of Review. And we get a lot of good feedback from people.
I'll bet. I've never heard it explained so well, frankly. So
Thank you.
thank you. Now, actually, there's 3 commissioners. Are you divided by district or area?
Yes.
Or?
I'm in District 1, which includes the vast majority of suburban Cook County. Commissioner Larry Rogers is in District 3, which covers probably the southern half of Chicago, the near southern suburbs, and some near western suburbs. Commissioner Mike Cabinargi covers the northern half of Chicago and the near northern suburbs like Evanston and Niles Township, and some of near western suburbs as well. But what people should know is this: despite the fact that we're elected from 3 different geographic districts, each commissioner has equal say-so over every appeal that comes to the Board of Review. So in other words, appeals will come through. They will be divided randomly between the staffs of Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Cabinargi, and myself. And whichever staff it goes to, that analyst for that particular commissioner will review the appeal. He or she will come to a decision. He'll write the decision in the jacket of the file. Then that file will be rotated to an analyst for another commissioner. That analyst to do the same thing, then it'll go to the third analyst. In order to get a reduction, 2 of the 3 analysts have to agree that a reduction is warranted.
Wow. I never understood any of this before, and I've had plenty of people talk about it on air.
Well, the reason that it's set up that way is so that you wouldn't want only the appeals from one geographic area going to the commissioner that represents that area, because he might be inclined to
Yeah,
give out.
because you're going to vote for him. So
Exactly. So you want balance at the Board of Review. You want balance geographically. You want balance party-wise.
Well, at this point, we're running out of time, but I want to would you like to give contact information if people like to contact you?
Well, you can contact me at my office. I'm at the Cook County Board of Review, or at 118 North Clark Street. Our website is cookcountyboardofreview.com.
Commissioner Dan Patlak, we're really out of time. Thank you very much, Sonny. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.